So what we have for you next is Emma Hoyle, Chief People Officer from King, and Adrian Leder, Head of Inclusive Game Design at Activision Blizzard. And what they're going to be discussing today is breaking barriers and building worlds, discussing inclusivity and how diversity of thought delivers better games. For all you gamers out there, this is your time. I'd like to welcome them to the stage.
Hello everybody. Wow, how amazing was that reel? It's very exciting to see so much kind of diversity of characters and yeah, everything up there. It's amazing.
Yes, and we couldn't have done it without the gratitude and joy and excitement of our 3.2 billion players all over the world. And it's so much about the community as it is about the joy in gaming as well.
Absolutely.
So I think I will be starting with a couple quick intros. So hello, it's great to meet all of you. Thank you for being here at Black Tech Fest. I'm Adrian Leda. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the head of inclusive game design at Activision Blizzard King.
And my name's Emma Hoyle, and I am the Chief People Officer at King, which is a very grand title. But I have been at King, this is my 4th week there. So I would imagine that if you are in this audience as somebody in the gaming industry, you know more about it than I do, so I'm still learning. So, Adrian, I'm going to ask you a quick question. So I want to hear a lot about your role. It sounds fantastic. But tell me, how did you start your career in gaming? Is it something that you always wanted to do?
Yes.
Oh.
I've always wanted to work in gaming, and ever since I was a kid, I would be playing games. And I remember showing it to my parents and saying, look how cool this is. I mean, nowadays you would see that and it might look a little dated, but it was so inspiring to me back then. And I wanted to see what it was like to create those games. So I tried to study engineering and programming in order to try to enter the world of gaming. But what I found when I entered college was that I found no one like me in my studies. I found that I was so behind the curve because in my public schools, we didn't even have programming classes, but everyone around me in my intro classes already knew how to program. I felt disadvantaged at every single point, and I also felt almost repelled, like my choice in what I wanted to do in gaming was not valid. But I found the support from some of my professors to push me through and say, you know what, this is real, this is the future. Inclusive gaming means that everyone can game. And in fact, there's a gamer in everyone. And I've joined and had the pleasure of being with Activision for the past 14 years,
wow,
working through an engineer and design group, and now working with this work in inclusive game design. It's just been a lovely journey and just an absolute joy.
And just to, can I quickly follow up on that? So once you kind of got over that hurdle and into the industry, did you find some of those barriers coming down?
Yes. I found that those barriers started to collapse in 2 ways. From within, when I became more confident in my work and understanding that I was supported by people at the company, by our games and content teams to be who I am, because we make better games when we can bring our full selves to work. And not just from within, but from without. So in even our gaming content, where we express greater diversity, greater identities of richness of the tapestry of humanity, we collapse those preconceptions that gaming might only be for certain audiences. And in fact, everyone is welcome to game.
Amazing, amazing.
I am curious about so much about the ways of not just like how I started in gaming, but also your evolution from your career. And previously, you'd worked in the world of television, and I'm curious what attracted you to the world of gaming.
I mean, 4 weeks into the world of gaming, I was attracted to it because I loved the creativity of working in the entertainment space. So I work in HR, and I think people think when you work in TV or you work in production that the jobs there are to be creating content. But there are actually relatively few jobs that are doing that. And I think I really saw those adjacencies with gaming, that if you want to work in a creative, inclusive, vibrant, and trailblazing industry, gaming is the place to be. And the scale of gaming as well is incredible. I mean, over 230 million monthly active users in Candy Crush. I can't imagine getting ratings like that for anything that goes out on TV. So the opportunity to kind of build this incredible world, I just thought that was really exciting. And I really wanted to be part of it. And 4 weeks in, nearly 4 weeks in, I feel like I can, say this is a really welcoming and inclusive industry. And if I can kind of come in at a senior level without having kind of grown up in this world and that experience be appreciated, then I think that's really special.
The richness and the just vast experiences that are within gaming, I think really express themselves in our products as well. And if you'd like to stop by our booth and see for yourself, you can see the variety of the different kinds of genres and games and art styles and expressions. And that's not an accident, of course.
No.
It is from the intentional design of making sure that there's of richness and variety in our gaming experience as well.
Yeah.
Speaking about variety, could you potentially share an experience of how you see gaming as a space for everyone?
I think what's really incredible about gaming and why to be successful, it has to be a space for everyone, is because there's not always narrative. So it's about character and it's about creativity. And people kind of can see themselves in that. And when I kind of, if you come to our stand and see all of our characters, we have to be inclusive. We have to allow people to see themselves in those characters. So I think, and I also think for all the different types of crafts that we have as well. So it's to be able to speak to the world, which we do at King and we do at Activision Blizzard as well, we need to be representative. And so for a European, for King, gaming company, we are really representative and we speak to such an amazing global audience. So inclusivity is actually like a commercial imperative for us. So, Adrian, let me ask you. So at Activision Blizzard King, I have to get used to not saying ABK, so no one will know what I'm talking about. We're in the business of creating worlds, and we've got a great responsibility to create worlds where everybody can see themselves and everyone can be themselves. So as head of inclusive game design, what does the concept of having the responsibility to create those kind of worlds and where everyone can be themselves, what does that mean to you?
There's a lot of ways to answer this, and I keep changing it whenever I answer, but I think the core of this is actually that it matters the world to me, because the world can be expressed in our games. And not just the world as it is, but also the world as it could be. So there's a responsibility for us to ensure that the tapestry of human experiences and the richness that is present there can also be reflected in our own games. And for inclusive game design, this is a new function at Activision Blizzard and King, ABK, but actually has been part of our work for a long time, because we've had advocates individually on teams who've been wanting to bring inclusivity into our products and experiences. And now with inclusive game design as a function, we can ensure that there's a centralized way that we can empower developers to think innovatively around this space. One of my favorite examples is a recent character from the Blizzard game Overwatch 2, a character named Lifeweaver, and Lifeweaver is of Thai background, and we brought in an expert on Thai culture to speak with us in order to consult of what are some things we could lean into or lean away from in order to ensure more authentic representation. And often what you'll see for male Thai characters in media, particularly video games, is they're usually represented in ways that are like, they're really strong and muscular, and they know Muay Thai, which is the Thai kickboxing, and that's it. And that's kind of that single story of almost a stereotype that you see repeated over and over in games. The Blizzard team decided to do something very different that instead expressed cultural nuance in Thai culture, which for Lifeweaver was about melding technology and design and nature. And that is a super awesome perspective on that culture. And that's what inclusion means. Sometimes we can bring in new stories, we can challenge old ones, and have games feel like they are part of this current narrative and also what the future narrative of inclusion in the world can be like. So that's just my one. And if we had time for more, I would go into more, but just one of the variety of craft that we have at ABK for inclusion.
That is amazing, because you're actually influencing culture by kind of breaking down those stereotypes and barriers in gaming, and with such a wide audience as well. That's amazing. I mean, you can give as many examples as you like, but that's but that's really lovely. And I you know, I think the way that we engage with our audiences and listen to our global audience so they do feel seen and heard in our game design is really important, so that we kind of we can keep growing our audiences. So let me kind of follow up with one more question. So one of the key comparisons that I've seen in film and TV and the world of interactive entertainment and gaming is that gaming can make the player experience so much more personalized. What's your kind of view on this as an observation?
I would say, this is somewhat embarrassing, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, which is that I think I see myself in games as the same way that other people can also see themselves reflected in games. And sometimes there's gaps that can occur. But what I believe we have the responsibility and ability to do is to have gaming be a mirror for which we can see ourselves reflected in, and even see ourselves somewhat differently and explore ways that maybe we wouldn't normally explore. And I think it's incredibly critical to not just a fun gaming experience, but also a memorable one that keeps us engaged, but also teaches us lessons about ourselves. So in the recent game Diablo 4, this was the first time players had the ability to really customize and create their own character. And that team did fantastic work to ensure there were a variety of inclusive and diverse options that characters can select to customize their own character. And we saw on social media many people creating characters that were of the likeness of themselves, that were a variety of different body types and skin tones and even like body markings and hair colors and hairstyles. And people found delight in knowing that they could create a hero in the world of Sanctuary that was slaying demons and getting the most epic loot. And it was an extension of themselves, a fantasy, but also one that was meaningful in creating a new space for them to explore, to break barriers, maybe to even exceed some of their current limitations in their own life. And that is the joy that gaming brings. Not just that it exists, but it exists with them. It's a participatory craft. It doesn't just live in a vacuum and we only have one designer thinking about it, but everyone, our community of gamers included, contribute to that inclusive experience. I love that question. I would love to ask you one. So what do you think the gaming and entertainment world needs to do to make the industry more inclusive to everyone?
I mean, there are so many things. So I think we have, in entertainment as a general, I think we've always been kind of pushing to be representative of our audiences, and that's the right thing. But we can never be complacent about that. And I do think that we've come a really long way in terms of diversity and representation, but that's different to inclusion, and we have to keep working on that. And in the 4 weeks in, so what do I know? But the sense that I get in gaming is that we're always looking to improve, and it's the small but consistent developments and improvements that we make. And I think that actually we should keep doing that in terms of how we see our people and our workforce as well. So we just keep reducing barriers, we just keep listening to people, talking to people, making people feel heard, and then we get better. So there's no kind of one big thing that we need to do. We just need to keep and be ruthless in wanting to kind of keep improving and marginal gains. So and I think that we're doing a good job of it. We can do better always, but I think it's because of the requirement for creativity. I think that it's something that we can be proud of.
I love that so much, and I would love to add to that a perspective where I think it's also learning incrementally on how the teams are growing in that sense, but also celebrating the joy and championing the successes that we have as well. One example that comes to mind with some of King's franchises is they have included a variety of accessibility features that help to accommodate certain kinds of disabilities. And as we have the interpreter up here, it reminds me that there's so many ways that we can be consciously more inclusive in how we're presenting things. And sometimes that comes around through education and awareness of things maybe we take for granted, or things that we just live through on a normal basis and just assume that it's always like that. But understanding that there's a variety of people who have different needs, different experiences, different expectations, and inviting them into the fold and celebrating that is part of that, I think, getting better incrementally as well.
One thing I have really noticed since I've been at King is that people are really at the heart of everything. So even on the reel when we came in, you see our games, you see our players, and you see our people. And that kind of, the fact that we engage with our audience and we listen to our people. And you're right, there is, 4 weeks in, there is a lot of celebration and I think that's it. It creates a really nice environment to work in.
I have a quick story to share around that environment and growing that educational part. So I mentioned earlier that my mom was really not the most enthusiastic when I told her I wanted to get into gaming. But about a few years ago, there was a character in Call of Duty who was of Filipino descent, where both my parents are from. And I showed that character to my mom. I'm like, look, there's Filipino representation in a major game. And they had so many different nuances of Filipino culture, from the different last names that were used to even the textures that her scarf was wearing. Even her voice was authentically Filipino. And she was just blown away because she had never seen this representation before in an interactive media. And to know that this is an effort that is conscious, that is happening, that is important, that creates an impact, is so powerful, not just for my own generation, but for the generations before who maybe not had that opportunity to be represented. And gaming has that wonderful arc of, I would say, correcting some of the past ways that we could be more inclusive, and also making that arc so much more positive, and not just saying, well, we could do it, but we could do it, we can actually do it better, and we can continue to bring more people into gaming.
So let me kind of, as we sort of slightly come to a close, let me ask you, what do you think is going to be the most important thing for people to consider and learn today from our discussion and from being here?
I think for me, the most important thing to take away from today is to celebrate who you are, be yourself, and don't apologize for that. Because who you bring into that space, there will always be those perspectives that will be challenging for other people and maybe not always welcoming right away. But once you are part of that, they will understand that there is joy in that education, that there's importance to those perspectives, and also that we can value who we are as who we are, and bringing ourselves is enough. And that to me is kind of that space that I'd love to do. And at the company here, I've learned that over time, and I wish I learned it sooner. It took me some time before I became openly out of the closet and revealed that I had a husband. And I realized I was blocking myself from sharing so much joy with others around me. And even like finding how do I refer to my husband without revealing that he's a guy was tough. And I realized that in that space, I could have not had to have done that. And everyone at the company would have accepted that and celebrated that alongside me. And I was inflicting a sort of pain that was not needed, and also was preventing inclusion in so many ways. So now what I want people to take away is to express that joy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's really, it's personal, and it's amazing. And what I would say is, our company is better off for having you celebrating yourself and being your true, authentic self and not having to hide everything. And I love that we work for an organization where people show up as themselves and can be that. So thank you.
Thank you. And what about you, Emma? As the new Chief People Officer at King, what would you hope people in the audience take away from today's events?
I would like people to take away that you don't have to know how to code to come and work in gaming. That we want people with all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences, and we want you to add to our culture, not to feel like you have to fit into it. So everybody who comes to us adds something to what our business is. And that can be, you can be, a really amazing games designer, or you can be an accountant, or you can work in HR. So if you want, there is a place for you in gaming, and so I hope you take that away. You're welcome. All right. There we are. Thank you very much. Come and see us over at our stand. There's jelly beans.
Thank you so much.